Alright, in this video I'm going to introduce my SU-25 Frogfoot. It's based off the real aircraft. Dimensionally it is, I believe, within one block of accuracy all around. Of course, in Stormworks, because of, some parts are, oversized, or, because each block is at least a quarter of a meter long. There are some parts that don't look as accurate as I would like, just because, I didn't want to swell the size of it just to, make to make it look more accurate. I'm trying to keep everything scale to as exacting a scale as possible. So we'll start on the port wing here. Each wing we're going to have 5 stations. So this would be our port 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Our 5th station is our fuel drop tank. This is plumbed into the system. Station 4 will end up being the rocket system. I've not hooked that up yet, so you can either hook a missile to there or a rocket if you wished. Over here on the wingtip, we have the landing lights. This is how they actually work in the Frogfoot. It's actually just a light that tips down. So in this version, I have one that tips down like this on either wingtip to simulate that for the landing lights. Walk around the tail section here. This is based off a real camo scheme that some of the pictures of the Frogfoot have shown. It has currently holding 8 of my Comet missiles, which are also in the workshop already. If we go to the front here, we have an autocannon. The real autocannon is on this side, and it's actually a dual autocannon in the real version. Due to size constraints in Stormworks, I had to go with a single. And we have I can't remember if it's a medium or a large magazine in there, so it actually holds quite a few rounds. It has a camera and a laser distance sensor. That's part of the targeting package. So if the laser is shooting out there, the gun will shoot just below the laser, so it really adds with the accuracy of the gun. So we'll go ahead and jump in. First thing I'm going to do is put on my parachute, which is behind the seat, and we'll sit in the seat. Quickly go through the cockpit. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on master power. Let me make sure that I don't have infinite electricity on. Nope. Okay. So this screen here is our targeting camera, so we'll go ahead and turn that on. So the first click is on, second click is IR for night, third click is off. So click it on for day mode. We can zoom in and out. We can turn on our laser. So let's zoom in. As you can see, we're lased. All right, next over here, this is from Sky. This is his PFD. And so I will link this when I release the Frogfoot and credit him accordingly. This vertical speed indicator is Thales. That's from his pack. This is excellent. This is very useful in the Autopilot. For the Autopilot, as we have vertical speed mode and we need to input that. We have a compass ball here as a backup compass. We also have the compass on the PFD. We have our engine 1 and 2 RPMs. We have our fuel in gallons. So there's 957 gallons in our main body. So right underneath the wind speed indicator where my little circle is there, that's our main fuel tank. We also have 2 shoulder tanks, one here and one here. So those are all added together to give us 957 gallons. Our 2 drop tanks are 152 gallons apiece. The way that the burn works is we burn off about 250 gallons out of our main tanks. Once the shoulder tanks are empty, then the drop tanks will burn. So this will go down to about 700. Then the drop tanks will burn off. Once they're exhausted, we can either drop them or keep them, and then the remainder of the fuel will burn. To the right of that, we have a low fuel indicator, which will flash red once we get below 200 gallons. That's going to tell you when to land. So if we go full throttle the whole time, we're going to burn through our fuel pretty quick. If we reduce that thrust down, we're going to save a lot of fuel. So our max speed's about just under 260 knots. And so if we cruise at 130, we have plenty of time. Plus, when we're doing bombing runs, or attack runs, we're going to want to keep it 120, 130, just because the slower you go and the easier it's going to be to stay on target longer. So let's say you're doing a gun strafing run. If I was going to shoot this mountain, if I'm going 250 knots, I might have 1 second before I have to pitch up, so I can get maybe a couple shots off. If I go half that speed, I might have 2 seconds and I can get double the shots on target. So plus, the missiles seem to behave a little bit better the slower you're going, because they have more time to you're not adding your velocity to the missile, so they have more time to try to hit the target. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to press our engine start stop. Press it on, engine starts. Press it off, engine stops. Pretty easy. We're going to toggle it on, engine's going to start. You'll notice our battery is draining. So that shows our battery. We're showing a discharge on our battery charge discharge. It's kind of like a voltmeter in a car or truck. It's showing a negative number. There's an automatic clutch on the generator that will keep that charged up on the ground when we're idle, as we are now. We're going to be discharging. Once we get up in the air, we have our thrust levers up, we'll be charging those batteries back up. We have brake release and brake indicator. We have our heater, and we have our closed canopy. So close the canopy up. All right, so next thing I want to make sure is I'm going to turn off vehicle damage and player damage. We have NPCs out there. We have some warships that we're going to be fighting, so we don't want them shooting us out of the cockpit and me having to start the video over again. So over here we have flaps up and down. So our flaps are in 25% increments. So we can start knocking that down. As you see, that's at 25%. We can go all the way down to 100% flaps, as you can see there. And so we can take off at any flap setting. I'm going to take off at flaps 50, so that's 50%. There's our gear retraction. Over here we have our heading for our autopilot. We need the autopilot master and a number greater than 0 to use the heading hold. We'll go through that in the air. We have our altitude capture hold. We'll go over that in the air. Our vertical speed up and down. And we have our altitude for our altitude hold. We'll go through that all when we do some flying with the autopilot. We have our weapons control panels. We have one port and starboard. On the starboard side, we have our master arm. So we need a bunch of conditions to be met before we can fire our weapons. So we're going to start by firing the guns just to show what those conditions are. All weapons are fired with the space bar, which is the trigger key on our seat. So we need to have a master arm on. We need to press our space bar, but we also need to select a weapon. So we have our 5 stations on our starboard. We have our 5 stations on our port. Those need to be selected to fire missiles. So right now we're going to select guns, and we'll shoot our gun because we can easily do that on the ground. I'm just going to zoom in, and I'm just going to press the space bar. As you can see, gun shoots right under the laser because the laser is right above the gun. All right. So we're going to shut our gun off. Now, press the spacebar, nothing. So we need master arm, a weapon selected, and the spacebar. All 3 conditions need to be met to fire a weapon. All right. So the other thing we have here is we have our fuel for our fuel pod indicated there. So once we read 0 on these, we know our fuel pods are empty and we can jettison them. On this side, we have rockets. Currently, I don't have the rockets plumbed up, but as I was saying before, on Station 4, we're going to put rocket pods there, and so the reason you do it this way is with the missile on there, if we wanted to launch 4, we would select 4, and we could launch it right now with spacebar. Alright, so we don't want to do that. If it's rockets, we don't want to just drop the rocket pods on the ground, so by clicking the rockets, that would make it so that we send a signal through the hard point to tell the rocket to fire. So that's why we have that. So currently we don't have any rockets on there. That will be plumbed in later. These two, the keypad and the screen are currently not connected. I think I still haven't decided what I want to do in that section there, so that will be updated. Our throttles here, it reads between 5 and 60. That's the RPS that we're sending to the engine. So we can also control that with 1 and 2. That allows us to land and not have to look over to the left and be reducing throttle like that. That allows for very nice landings. So we're going to go ahead and taxi out. We'll release our brakes, start increasing the thrust. You'll notice our throttle moves very slow. This is intentional. I'm a pilot in real life. I used to fly for the airlines, and so I try to make all my aircraft as real to life, from my experience. So you don't want Stormworks can be very touchy on jet engines. If this was any more sensitive, I couldn't be taxiing at this nice slow speed here. It would shoot me up into the mountains already. So I don't want that. So next thing we do is our left and right arrow controls our nose wheel steering. So as you can see, we have nose wheel steering there. That's with our left and right arrow. Our down arrow is our brakes. All right. We can, once we let go of it, it will release. All Alright, so we'll start taxiing out for takeoff. So we're all set for takeoff. We have flaps at 50%, which again, you know, there's enough power in this that we can take off at any flap setting, but I'll do flaps 50. And I'm going to just straighten out. Our rotation speed is between 90 and 100 knots, so anything over that we can rotate. So I usually like to rotate around 100 knots. So we're going to line up. We have a nice sensitive nose wheel steering, so we're going to do very small corrections on takeoff. And even with that really low sensitivity throttle, you see how easy it was to take off. So we have some warships off to our port side there. So next we'll look at our gear. So as you can see, we have really nice flush mount gear. You can't see, you know, too many open holes. Those are designed to be open there. I'm going to quickly click the button. We'll go back outside and watch them retract. So as you can see, they rotate and stow, and the doors open and close very quickly and very cleanly. You can see no real gaps. Alright, so the next thing we'll do is we'll raise our flaps. Alright, and the next thing I'll do is I'll do a quick stability check. So my hands are off the controls. The only thing I did was click K to look at the camera, and I'm just panning with the mouse. So my hands are off. As you can see, we're very stable. You know, so this is what we want in an aircraft. We want inherent stability. Alright, so this will help us with gun runs. This will help us flying. So, you know, like I could go look at something else. I could go turn on a YouTube. I could do whatever I want. And the plane's going to stay in the attitude I left it in. That's a desirable fact in aeronautical engineering. Alright, so next thing we'll do is we'll do a quick introduction to the Autopilot. So, if I click Autopilot Master on, it's going to do one thing at this point. It's going to turn on the vertical speed hold. It's going to try to maintain 0 knots vertical speed. That's its only job. Alright? Now as you notice, it's not holding perfect 0. That's because if we need to trim. So at 131 knots, we have a negative vertical speed essentially. So the wings are not, you know, producing enough lift to keep us level. So now let's speed up a little. So I'm going to increase the thrust. You'll notice our vertical speed goes up. So this system will never hold perfect 0 unless it's trimmed. So let's say I want to speed up, right? So right there at 162 knots, we're holding close to 0, all right? So when we turn our Autopilot Master on, all it's going to do is it's going to try to maintain whatever vertical speed we put in there. And default, that's 0, plus the error just because of speed. So at 160 knots, we're doing 65 feet per minute climb. As you saw at 130 knots, we had a negative 180. You know, that's just the way that the aerodynamics work. So next thing we want to do is we're going to put an altitude. So let's do 5,000 feet. That's a 2,000 foot per minute climb, or a 2,000 foot climb. So let's put 5,000 feet. And we'll do the check mark. Now it stays in vertical speed mode. All right, that's how a real aircraft would do it. So when I was in the airlines, we would put in, say, 5,000 feet. And the plane doesn't go to 5,000 feet until you select a method to reach that. So our method in this aircraft is going to be vertical speed mode. So right now we're maintaining 0. We're not climbing towards 5,000 at all, and that's fine because we may not want to climb there yet. And that's why we did it like that in the airlines. If we were told maintain 3,000 feet, expect 5,000 in 10 minutes, you would put 5,000 in, but you would stay at the altitude until it was time to go up. So now we want to climb. So we're going to do vertical speed up. This is in increments of 100, so I'm just going to do 10 to get up to 1,000 feet per minute. Alright, so as you can see on the vertical speed indicator, we're going about 1,000 feet per minute. Now we can go a maximum of 3,000, up or down. So I'm just going to keep clicking until I get 3,000 feet per minute. Once we get close to 5,000, which we're 1,500 feet away from, we're going to go into altitude capture hold mode. Once we get close, it's going to change our PIDs from vertical speed mode to altitude capture mode, which will hold us at that altitude within an accuracy of less than 1 foot per minute. So it will maintain you know, a foot per minute accuracy. So here we come, we're coming up close. Notice the light will go green, it will automatically level us off. There we go. And we watch our vertical speed indicator. You'll see this will eventually get below 1 foot per minute accuracy. And here it comes. And there we go. So we're maintaining our altitude. It will even go another digit more accurate, so it's very accurate. All right, next thing we're going to do is our heading hold. So if we have a 0 in there, our heading hold is disabled. If we have any other number in there, it will be enabled. So right now, let's just hold our current heading of 240. 240 is in. As you see, it rolled the wings level, has an automatic wing leveler. And so now we're going 240, and we are maintaining 5,000 feet. All right, so let's go back towards those ships. So as you can see where we are now, we're way over here already. Let's go back. So if we're going 240, we want to go the opposite of that. So I'll just put in a quick heading. I'm not going to do the calculation. I'm just going to put a 030. So once I click that, it will auto bank us, and it will auto yaw. I need to put in a correction for pitch, because it's because it's banking the wings so much and it's yawing into the turn, it's causing us to lose some altitude and kick us out of that mode. So I need to come up with a solution for that. So we need a little bit more. So let's do 45 for a heading. It's gonna turn us over there. Probably a little bit more, maybe 050. All right, so now we're headed back to where we want to be. Alright, so I'm actually going to descend. I'm going to descend down to 1,000 feet. And I'm going to go down maximum of 3,000 feet per minute. So I'm just going to keep clicking it until we get down to 3,000 feet per minute. Alright, so that's our autopilot mode. So we can, so let's say we want to shut off heading hold. All we need to do is put in a 0. Now it's no longer holding our heading. So remember that it would fix our wings. As you can see, it's off. It's not going to keep our wings level for us. Alright. So we can change heading manually now, and it will automatically still maintain our altitude mode. If I shut this autopilot master off, it shuts off all of it. So say we're ready for our attack run and we want to disable the autopilot, we can just click this button off and it will shut all the autopilot off. So that's a good way to do that. All right, so we have our master arm on. We're going to select one of the comets. That's the #1 slot on our starboard wings. That is this outside comet right here. That's going to be the one we're going to attack with first. Now, again, I shut off vehicle damage and player damage, so the ships are not going to sink, but they're also not going to be able to knock us out of the sky while I'm trying to do a tutorial video. So we've got that going for us, which is nice. All right, so if we look at our fuel, we're still burning out of our main tanks. So, like I said, until we get below about 700 gallons, we are not going to start eating into our pods yet. Once you notice this stop draining, which it did just about there, yep, it's not quite yet. It's getting close to stopping, and then it will start draining the fuel pods. There we go. We have our port fuel pod draining now. So we probably have a little fuel imbalance just because my wings aren't rolled level. So let's roll those level and see if we can't get that right shoulder tank to drain out, and then we can start eating off that other pod. So we're coming back. So right now we're doing 154 knots. Let's actually increase our speed. We'll show what max speed looks like. So as you can see, even with speed changes, the PIDs are trying to maintain our altitude nicely. So our max speed is between about 250 and 260 knots. The real aircraft, I think, does something like 500 knots, but that's also at, there we go, what's that? There's the, looks like the refuel plane trying to change altitude there. Going a little bananas over there. Alright, so we're coming in close. So as you can see, I sped up just to try to get there a little closer, plus to show the max performance. So as you can see, even with this very low sensitivity throttle or thrust lever, I can very easily control my speed. Alright, so we still haven't drained off. These tanks are full again. Okay, good. Alright, so we're coming up on our targets. I'm just going to remove that waypoint. We don't need it. So we're back to our area where our enemies were. We just actually had the refueling plane. So I don't believe the Frogfoot could aerially refuel. And so I have not added that in. If I'm incorrect with that, I will look into it and potentially add it. But I'm just going to look outside, cheat, and try to find a target. So there's our large ship right there. So we're going to go attack that. So the comets have been pretty accurate, but still a lot of whispers about some radar bugs. So we'll see what the accuracy looks like here. I've done a lot of pit tuning. The comet's pretty accurate. One of my tests today, I had 7 out of 8 hits. So out of 8 missiles, 7 hit, and that was because it actually hit the body a little bit of our aircraft. So I'm going to use the laser just to get close, and then I'm going to fire. Comet's going in. We're going to watch it. That one is going to miss. Okay. So, I'll have games, especially when I think the desync is low and, there's not too much lag. I think part of the issue with the last update video, or the weekly update from the devs talked about how they're coming out with more missile parts to increase accuracy. So, the missiles keep breaking, they keep working. So I have sometimes they're working great, sometimes they're missing. So, we're just going to have to be patient with the devs until we get pretty much a standard where we can build to, because I keep changing pit tuning based on, if the radars are working that week or not. And then, so there's another one going in. And that one tracked a little late. All right. So again, probably some more tuning, but, there's so many factors with this where, like I said, earlier today, I had 7 of the 8 missiles hit, and I'll have some where most of them are misses. So, until we have kind of the definitive radars, it's very hard for us to tune these missiles in to be perfect, because, just next patch they'll break. So, no problem with that. That's just, development and what it takes. So that one should hit. So one thing I've been recommending to people too is just, one thing you want to note is tactics. So you notice the first 2 misses I had, I was going perpendicular to the ship. So if you think about it this way, if you're trying to hit a moving car with a baseball, if the car is moving right to left or left to right, which is perpendicular to you, it's going to be very difficult for you to hit that car, because you have to judge how fast it's going left-right. And so that's the same thing with the missiles. The missiles are struggling to try to essentially guess which way the ship's going. So if you reduce the relative velocity, in this case by going bow or stern, you'll notice we get consistent hits. So, some people have been saying, oh, the missiles aren't hitting, and it's true. They're not going to be perfect. But part of it is you can help yourself out by having some proper methodology. And so you want to reduce the relative motion of your target as much as possible. So a stationary tank is pretty easy, right? It's not moving. The missile says, hey, I don't have to do many changes to get on target. If something's doing a U-turn, it's going to be very hard for the missile to try to hit it. This ship here, again, should be pretty easy to hit because our relative velocity is very low. Another hit. All right, you notice the first 2 perpendicular. So one thing I would recommend is give yourself the best chance to get a hit. All right, so come in from a bow or stern angle if it's a ship. An aircraft, again, same thing. You don't want to hit an aircraft perpendicularly. You want to either come from the nose of the aircraft or go to the tail of the aircraft. So we have a smaller vessel here, 12 o'clock. I don't even know what that is. That's a party boat, I think. I keep uploading the same saves, so getting familiar with these. So this is perpendicular and a small target. So this is going to have a very high chance of missing. All right? Because we're perpendicular, target's moving left to right, the missile has to make a quick adjustment. And from what a lot of the rumor mill's saying is that there are azimuth problems with the radars. There's still some bugs. Even it looked like the devs admitted in the last update video that they're doing a bunch of work trying to tune in the radars, which is awesome for them to fix. So hopefully we'll get some radars that we have a little bit more information on, and we can hopefully, as creators, tune in our equipment. So here we're on a stern shot. All right, so this should be a much easier shot to get a hit. So we're coming in. And that one went right under the ship, but very close to a hit. So not a hit, but much closer than the other ones. All right. So again, we want to put ourselves in the most advantageous position to get a hit. So some other methodology things I want to recommend is, as I said, don't come screaming in at 250 knots and expect to be hitting all your gun shots and hitting all your missile shots. As you notice, the more accurate I could get, the closer I could get that laser on target, the better chance you're going to have of getting a hit with these missiles. Right? So if you're coming screaming in at 250 knots and, you know, you just don't have time to line up. You know, you're going to be wiggling all over the place trying to get alignment. You see, I'm coming in nice and slow. I could get that laser pretty close to that boat before I fire. I'm right on the boat. Fire. All right? And that's a hit. All right, so much of this is methodology. You want to use the appropriate methods and operating procedures to try to get the objective completed. So that's a big tip I would use for these missiles. Try to put yourself in the most advantageous position. Get close so the missile doesn't have to make a ton of corrections. Make sure you're trying to get a bow or stern shot if you can. Essentially saying reduce the relative motion that the vehicle is making away from you. So we'll go to guns. I'm going to actually slow down even more. I'm going to go down to around 100 knots. All right, so like I was saying, coming slow if you're doing strafing runs, it's going to give you more time to get on target. As you see, if I was coming at 250 knots, I would have already crashed in the ocean. So coming in nice and slow at 100 knots, I had time to make all my corrections. I even have time to quickly turn over here and shoot the big ship. If I was screaming around 250 knots, my turning circle would be enormous, and I wouldn't have time to get a shot on this big ship here. All right. So as you can see, we're coming in slow. The slower I am, you know, look how many shots I got because I was going slow. So that's another methodology thing you want to do is, you know, come in nice and slow. The only downside to that is that, we get a little too slow there. The only downside to that is they're going to be shooting back at you, right? So I tend to come in, say 130, 150 knots. I get a little bit of speed on, but, you know, I also want to reduce it down so I get more accuracy. As you see, I'm letting the boat come into my laser. I'm not even going to turn my nose with the yaw. I let him come into my laser, and I got my hits. All right, and now I can even power out if I want. I can speed out. All right, I can go around. I can do a nice chandelle here. Do a nice quick chandelle. And I'm going to slow it back down. All right. And now I'm back on target for the large ship. All right, so I'm actually going to speed way up. We'll show how ugly a 250 knot approach is. So see how little time I have? I'm like screaming, trying to line up, and then I have to duck out really quick because I'm approaching so fast. All right, so that's something you want to keep in mind is so much of this is methodology. You know, so if people are having problems with the missiles, try changing some of your methodology. Try using a laser like I am to get alignment because, as we all know, the radars with the new field of view, if they're not perfectly in field of view, like this is even a hard shot here because I need to start pitching up. So if the radars are not in field of view, the missile is just going to miss. So using a laser like that allows me to get the missile pointing at the right target. So try to use some of those tips to help yourself out and get the best chance at a hit possible. All right, so the next thing we're going to do real quick, I'm just going to speed up, burn off some fuel so that I can drop these drop tanks. So as you see, they're almost exhausted. All right, so we have this one at 0 and this one's at quickly going down to 0. So the imbalance there is caused by me banking. Up there, a bunch of helicopters. That actually brings up a good point. So a lot of people have been talking about the comets and how they're struggling to hit helicopters. My hypothesis, which I'm not 100% with, I haven't tested this, but I have seen it in some of my earlier vehicles, is I think that the radars are detecting rotor blades. Some of the helicopters I built before have had radars on top of the rotor blades, and the radar will show a ring of radar signatures where the rotor blades are. So what I've noticed is if I shoot at a helicopter, the missile will go towards the helicopter and then at the last second change direction. So what I think's happened is the closest radar signature is going to be the forward-facing blade. That blade is then going to start turning away, you know, clockwise or counterclockwise, and the missile is going to try to go after it and chase the blade. Well, it's never going to be able to catch a rotor blade, so it misses. One way I've kind of tested this is I've gone underneath the helicopter and tried shooting the belly so that the closest radar signature is the belly, and the most consistent hits I get on a helicopter are belly shots. So that is my hypothesis. I have not tested it. So if you want to test them out, you want to try it, try shooting the helicopters from underneath, because I think the radars are targeting the rotor blades. Again, not 100%, but that is my hypothesis, and I'm sticking to it. Alright, so next thing we want to do is drop the drop tanks. So they should both be exhausted. Alright, so we have master on. We're going to select station 5 on either side, and we're going to drop them. So just press the space bar. I had the gun selected too. And there go our drop tanks. Alright, we'll shut the gun back off. We'll shut our master arm off, and we'll come in for a landing. Alright, so again, you know, I really like as much realism as possible in my builds. And as a real pilot, you know, with a degree in aeronautical science, I really like to try to make things as accurate as possible. So I really wanted the approach to feel like a real airplane. I wanted to feel like I was back in the regional jet landing at an airport. So that's another reason why this throttle is nice and sensitive, is it gives you great speed control. So I'm going to actually do a little bit of a turn here just so you can see my gear come down. So we're going to select the gear, and here they come. As you can see, they come down and rotate, lock into place. There's actually hard point connectors in there to lock them. Sometimes you'll find if you try rotating gear, if you land too hard or you hit at the brakes, they'll try to rotate because the pivot cannot hold it in place. With the hard point connectors in there, it prevents them from turning. It makes them rock solid. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is gear is down. I'm going to put my flaps fully down. Approach speed should be about 100 knots. If you get slower than 90, you're going to start getting a bunch of stall characteristics. So we'll make our base leg here. So as you can see, we're getting slow. I just one tap of the one key, and we're back up to 106 knots. So I really like that low sensitivity thrust lever. That's how we would do it in the airlines. We had a little friction lock. We would tighten up the lock when we were coming to landing because we needed real precision for our landing speed. So I'm actually coming a little fast. I can tap a couple taps, and as you see, I just bled off 5 knots. If you had too much sensitivity in your throttle, you'd be coming down, you know, 40 knots, and you'd, you know, crash into the ground. So we're aiming at the triple aiming bars there. Coming in just a little bit hot. I'm going to start to rotate, or flare rather. I'm going to settle in. I'm going to reduce my thrust to 0. Alright, nice, gentle landing. I'm going to use my left and right keys to steer, and I'm just going to tap the down arrow, and that's my brakes. I can actually bring the thrust back up, and we'll taxi back to the hangar. Alright, so as you can see, even with that super low sensitivity thrust lever, I can still easily and quickly taxi. You know, here I am doing 24 knots taxiing, which is faster than I've ever taxied, you know, in real life. Nice precision here. Very sensitive nose wheel, which takes a little bit of getting used to, but it also allows you to make those quick turns. So I'm going to hold the down arrow to fully brake. We'll set our parking brakes, shut off our camera. Alright, and shutdown procedure is super easy. Just press the engine start stop. Now, if you remember, I said the generator would generate once the thrust was up, and as you can see, we have generated electricity while we're out there with full throttle. We'll go ahead and we'll open the canopy. We will shut off the aircraft. We can stow our parachute. Alright, and that is the Frogfoot. So I still have a little bit of tweaking, but I hope to release it this weekend. I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy it when it gets in the workshop. Thanks for watching.